So I think I did probably
Just don't cook for him.
$5,000.
Let him cook for you.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Pete Berube. I'm chairperson of the Millis Finance Committee. Tonight is the 1st of November, and it is also the pre-town meeting or public hearing. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and I would like for the Finance Committee members to introduce themselves.
John Lohr.
Sarah Reyes,
Peter Underhill.
Joyce Boyardi.
Jody Garson,
Kathy McInnes. Jen Zaretsky.
Okay, and Michael Crone is absent tonight. He had a conflict in his schedule, so Deirdre, if you would note that. And so we're going to get right to,
Mr. Chairman, I have to call the select board.
please.
I'll call the meeting of the select board to order. Okay, we've voted, almost called to order. And we have Aaron and Ellen with me tonight.
Okay. That was just the select board calling their meeting to order as they have quorum. All three members are present. I don't want to get too far ahead of the schedule because the discussion and comments are scheduled for 7:10. We're close to that. Essentially, I'll just lay the groundwork, and that is that the Finance Committee is going to read through the motions, virtually identical as will be presented on Monday, the 6th. We will go through our discussion comments. We will take feedback and some questions as time allows, and provided that we haven't already addressed the issues. But we will take some discussion on warrant articles as presented, and then we'll just proceed through, and we should be done in about an hour. I think I've stalled as much as I can, so let's get started. We'll start with Article number 1.
Article number 1. I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $6,815.88. Transfer the sum of $7103 from sewer enterprise reserves. Transfer the sum of $1,908.19 from water enterprise reserves. And transfer the sum of $4,428.13 from stormwater enterprise reserves for a total sum of $13,223.23 for unpaid bills as written in the warrant.
Second.
Okay.
Would you like, Mr. Chair, would you like me to read through each of the bills
We will not. We'll just say as presented.
as presented?
Okay?
This article requires a 4/5 majority vote.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded that the committee recommend approval to transfer free cash in the sum of $6,815.88. Transfer the sum, that amount was from free cash. Also transfer the sum of $71.03 from sewer enterprise reserves. Transfer the sum of $1,908.19 from water enterprise reserves. And transfer the sum of $4,428.13 from storm water enterprise reserves for a total sum of $13,223.23 for unpaid bills, as written in the warrant. Discussion.
This article, if approved, is a semi-annual article to fund bills incurred in the previous fiscal year. The bills for this town meeting totaled $13,223.23 and will be funded from free cash, sewer, water, and stormwater enterprise funds. These bills occurred from the previous fiscal year.
Okay, and how did the Finance Committee
I'm sorry, the
vote?
Finance Committee unanimously recommends this article to be approved.
Okay, well, we are not going to re-vote. We're just going to state how we voted, okay? Any questions or comments? Okay. None heard. Article 2.
Article 2, I move that the town vote to transfer from marijuana impact fees, free cash, the sum of $210,585.03, and transfer from opioid settlement funds, free cash, the sum of $2,520 for a total sum of $213,105.03 for additional wages and expenses not sufficiently funded under Article 3, operating budgets of the May 3rd, 2023 annual town meeting as written in the warrant.
Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the committee vote to approve that the committee recommend approval of Article 2, vote to transfer from marijuana impact funds the sum of $210,585.03, the transfer from opioid settlement funds, free cash, the sum of $2,520, for a total sum of $213,105.03 for additional wages and expenses not sufficiently funded under Article 3 operating budgets. Discussion. Mr. Lohr.
Chair. For Article 2, if approved, this article requests to transfer a total of $213,105.03 from available funds to cover the remaining marijuana impact funds requested for fiscal year 2024. The total host community agreement, HCA requests were submitted for the fiscal year 2024 budget for the May 2023 town meeting. The request could only be funded at the May town meeting with the remaining available certified funds from September 2022. The balance of the requests are now being funded in the November town meeting with funds certified in September 2023. The Finance Committee recommends approval of this article. The Finance Committee passed this unanimously 9-0.
Okay, any further discussion, questions, comments? None heard. Moving right along, Article 3.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Lohr.
I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $274,373 and transfer from water enterprise reserves the sum of $42,453 and transfer from sewer enterprise reserves a sum of $42,453 for a total sum of $359,279 to fund the following capital items.
Please go through 'em.
For the fire department, public safety radios antenna, $89,373. For town buildings, HVAC repairs, $75,000. Water and sewer department, Chevy Silverado pickup truck, $84,906. Library, Phase 2 lighting replacement, $110,000, all totaling $359,279.
Second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. The committee recommends approval of transfer from free cash the sum of $274,373 and transfer from water enterprise reserves the sum of $42,453 and transfer from sewer enterprise reserves the sum of $42,453 for the total sum of $359,279 to fund the capital items as read. Discussion. Mr.
Mr.
Lohr.
Chair. For Article 3, if approved, request the town to raise and appropriate the transfer from available funds $359,279 to fund 4 capital requests for multiple departments for fiscal year 2024. Each fiscal year, the Capital Planning Committee goes through a process to review and prioritize the capital requests from each department. This process helps the Select Board determine which capital items will be considered at each town meeting. Finance Committee recommends approval of this article. The Finance Committee passed this unanimously 9-0.
Okay. Any further discussion, questions, comments? I would just suggest that during discussion, you go into just the high-level items on each of the 4 projects or the 4 purchases. It doesn't have to be every detail, please.
I have 2 pages worth of
That's probably
sub-points.
a page too
Would
many,
you like to
but-
hear any of them?
Not
this-
le-
in
No,
this-
no, I
no?
don't. I've
Okay.
heard them, but I would just.
There's some
be-
good stuff here.
I would go right into it at town meeting,
Okay.
for certain.
So just to be fair, because our town administrator passed on some information today, I thought was some good stuff. For town building, the HVAC repairs, for the Veteran Memorial Building, fat coil unit control valves, total $30,000 for maintenance expenses. Exhaust fans, $9,000 for maintenance expenses. Drain and clean circulation pipes and replace glycol, $15,000 maintenance expenses for a total of $54,000. The fire station needs to replace a head end in the chief's office due to a leak, recover the refrigerant, install 16-valve leak check pressure test evacuate and recharge with refrigerant totaling $15,000, and a recommended contingency of $6,000 totaling $75,000. That's an example out of the others. Would you like to hear more? Okay.
Not me personally, no.
I have the
But I
details. I have the details of the
I
question.
totally understand. Yeah, I would just hit wave tops of each project, and then if there are more questions, you can amplify, or a technical expert can go into as much detail as voters want, as
Agreed.
they ask. So,
Agreed. Thank you.
okay. All right, any more questions, comments? Okay. Article 4. I move that the town vote to appropriate $7,100,000 to pay costs of designing, constructing, furnishing equipment, a new Well 3 PFAS treatment facility, including the payment of all other costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7-1, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. All or any portion of the amount authorized to be borrowed by this vote may be obtained through the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust, the trust, and in that regard, the select board and the treasurer are authorized to execute and deliver any and all documents and agreements that may be required by the trust and the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection to evidence any such borrowing. The total amount authorized to be borrowed for this project shall be reduced to the extent of any grants or gifts that may be received by the town on account of this project.
Second?
A 2/3 majority vote is required to pass.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Actually, just in summary, this is to, it's been moved and we recommend approval of $7,100,000 or any other amount to pay costs of designing, constructing, furnishing, and equipment a new Well 3 PFAS treatment facility. Discussion. I will also cover the discussion. Millis recognized the existence of PFAS, which is per and polyfluoroalkyl substances within the drinking water several years ago. Since then, Millis has been complying with DEP and EPA regulations to address PFAS. Millis actively monitors PFAS levels to ensure allowable thresholds are not exceeded and has taken wells offline when PFAS levels exceeded 20 parts per trillion. Millis recently completed construction of a carbon treatment plant at wells 1 and 2, which is now fully operational with 0 parts per trillion PFAS detected. Well number 3 is one of 6 wells supplying potable water within Millis. Because well 1 and 2 alone are not sufficient to meet Millis water needs, and because well 3 has at times exceeded 20 parts per trillion, it is necessary to construct another PFAS treatment plant using the same highly effective granular activated carbon filtration technology as the DeAngelis plant at wells 1 and 2. The estimated construction cost for the 2,900 square foot plant at well 3 is $7.1 million, with the burden for that borrowing to be applied to the Water Enterprise Fund. It is anticipated Millis will receive a $3.5 million EPA grant to offset the total project cost. If approved by voters, it is anticipated that the project will go to bid in January of 2024. Any further discussion, comments, questions?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. McKay?
not to change anything that you presented, I believe that the board was presented tonight with the cost as a breakdown, as requested by the board. I want to apologize for the lateness of receiving that, but I did ask Deirdre and the town administrator not to send that out until we got the approval of the finance director and the treasurer collector, which he assures me they did. So if there's any questions on the amount, I will certainly turn it over to the two of them to answer those questions, because it means a lot of numbers to me, doesn't mean anything. Other than it's a lot of money for both of them. This, I believe, will be put in a handout at town meeting so the residents can see. I believe it's already on your website, and it will be posted as part of the meeting packet that will be for town meeting.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody has any questions.
So I would just say, take a minute or two to read this over. I will digest it myself. I will summarize it in my discussion comments. And certainly, if you have questions, if I have questions for you, I will certainly come to you before Monday and
I mean, the largest thing, Mr. Chair, is in the PFAS plant, there's two different sets. One with the PFAS grant from the EPA and the breakdown. And whatever grants that we get, like you stated, we're still applying for grants. So these numbers could change. Hopefully, they're going to change lower, much lower than what's on the paper. The Vactor, with talking to the,
Just hold off on the Vactor,
Okay.
if you would. We're coming up
Okay.
on that. I don't want to
Okay,
confuse the
yep.
issues. Okay. Ms. Garzon?
So if we're going to provide this at town meeting, where it says new plant SRF, I would
spread out what is that
define what
SRF?
is
Okay.
SRF.
We can do that.
And at first, I didn't realize the differences between those two numbers, because it doesn't really start to differ until FY '27.
Correct. That's,
So I would kind of make that a little bit more obvious, because it almost, at first glance, it looks like it's the same numbers twice. Now I see that it's not, but just, not everyone's used to looking at spreadsheets.
Yep.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. McGinnis?
could someone just explain this to me? What is the cost per ratepayer?
Mr. McKay?
I'll do my best. So if you look down for the impact on FY '25, total addition, that's 6802, that would be per year, not by quarter? 1701 would be by quarter. 1701 would be by quarter, the top number, and 68 is the annual.
And this is to all?
Oh,
All water ratepayers. Just water ratepayers.
Mr. Chair, if I might ask?
go ahead.
That was what's in green. What's the arrow below it mean?
So the arrow below, in the other numbers, we're asking the town to appropriate $7.1 million. And the finance director, and I totally agree with it, we have to put down, what if everything doesn't go through? We're appropriating $7.1 million. The voters need to know what that cost would be. And for the short term, for the first 2 years, let's go over to FY '27.
Can I just take a stab at simplifying your answer
Yep.
real quick? Green is if the grant is received? and
Right,
could-
I'd say you
Okay,
explain that.
sorry,
Thank you.
I got
Yep.
distracted. And so yellow is worst-case scenario, 0 grant dollars. Am I
Yep.
accurate?
Yeah. So FY '27, if there's no grant, that really hits almost $200
That would be correct.
per year.
No,
No.
Per quarter.
per quarter.
Annual
Per
amounts
quarter.
in yellow, the bottom line, it would be an extra,
A year, 700 and,
almost $800.
Yep.
That gives pause. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. McKay.
Mr. McCaffrey?
Mr. Chairman, Jim McCaffrey, I will be serving as the temporary moderator. I'm asking this specifically from the point of view of the audience. I'm assuming that this is going to be a handout, right, that everybody will get? Is that the plan? Correct. Okay, so all members will have it, all town meeting members. I do suggest that rendering in black and white is not as helpful as rendering it in yellow and green. So I just want to clarify what's going to be passed out so I can be aware of what the audience will see. Okay, thank you.
So to that point, I don't recall that the Finance Committee had discussion on, typically, we will always provide the clearest information possible. I don't recall that we discussed this particular information being passed out. And I absolutely don't have a problem passing out information, but to the point Mr. McCaffrey raised, I will review this this week in time for printing to be distributed on Monday at town meeting. So I will, if I have any questions or, once you've made edits that you already talked about, we'll get together this week and make sure that we're, that the Finance Committee, because we're not going to have another meeting with Mr. Gazinski and yourself and possibly the Select Board, make sure that we're all on the same page of music and we agree on it in principle.
Mr. Chair, I'm kind of confused. The request did come from this board, from members of this board to have this before town meeting.
Right, but not exactly like, in other words, we didn't get into the details in terms of what is printed, and I don't recall even having the discussion on the Vector truck either, so I have no problem providing information.
Well, I would hope that one of the members that requested it would speak up and that she did ask for it
I did, Mr. Chair, I asked for both the Vector and this.
from this table.
From the, yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
So-
It's just because one member asks for some information doesn't mean that the Finance Committee has to provide it at town meeting. So it needs to be clear information, and there are questions being raised right now.
About what? Excuse me? Just remind me
The color
again
of the,
what
black and
questions.
white of the document, sir?
Amongst them, I mean, you heard the question, yes.
And that's very, it will be.
What
in
is your
color.
issue with what I just said? I said our intent is to provide clear information. This is not crystal clear. It raises more questions. And so we will.
To you.
Correct. And I don't think I'm the only person in a town of 9,000 that will have a question on this.
Other than it's almost $900, correct. I asked the same question myself as a ratepayer. Now I'm speaking as a citizen. I don't know why you're against this being handed out.
I'm not.
It sounds like you are,
I'm,
Mr.
I
Chair,
think it
does.
could be, I think it could be better. I think the information could be more clearly presented.
Well-
That's my only comment.
Well, how?
I just got this, Mr. McKay. I'm sorry if I
I'm
can't
sorry
go
I'm
through it
upsetting
line by
you.
line.
I'm sorry
but
I'm
I'm not
upsetting
prepared
you,
to do
sir.
that. May I speak?
Stop yelling at me.
May I speak,
Stop
please?
yelling at me, sir. Calm down. You're getting a little
We're done
excited.
having this discussion.
Thank you.
Move on. Mr. McCaffrey.
Jim McCaffrey, temporary moderator. All I ask as the moderator is that I be presented with whatever people are going to pass out. Nothing should be distributed to the public without the moderator's approval, because that's kind of what we're trying to do to control the information. I don't know what's going to be in it or what you have, and it's not, believe me, there's no veto here. I just want to know in advance, that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Gazinski.
If I may, yes, and actually, just addressing the moderator's comments, certainly as always, I will be providing the moderator with whatever final documents are being considered to be handed out at the meeting. And certainly, I'd be happy to have a back and forth, just to have this document in a format that's the easiest discernible by the residents, so they can decipher it. And to Ms. Garzon's point, some of the vernacular in here would be difficult for non-financial people to extrapolate from, so, thank you.
When was, Deirdre, when was this spreadsheet provided to us?
This afternoon, well, around 10 to 5 this afternoon is when I got the final document.
Okay. And I'll just make the point that I've been asked several times to make sure that the school committee and other committees in town that provide information to the to the finance committee for this meeting be given 48 hours in advance. And I've passed those requests on to both the select board and to the school committee because it's been a point of emphasis for one of our members, and I respect that. I didn't do that for this. I wasn't aware that this was being provided tonight, and I haven't had a chance to review it. And so I'm gonna reserve that right to review this, and if people don't like that, they may lodge their concern, and we'll have a committee meeting about it. But I'm not gonna just put the first thing that's presented to us 2 to 3 hours before this meeting into a publicly provided handout. I'm just not gonna do it. So that's all I have to say about it.
Can I ask a question?
Ms. Barnes?
Yes, Loring Barnes. I'm looking at this for the first time, too. I just wanted to ask, perhaps, You should assume that the audience is are lay people, so CIP fee should be explained, any acronyms or abbreviations, factor. And I think it should be, maybe an asterisk should be put in between at fiscal year '27 because of the jump that I think I would interpret as the building has begun. But that also kicks in right at the same time as the new Tri-County School, so I think that would be an important element to be presenting at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Hearing no further questions, comments, Article 5.
I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $500,000 for road and sidewalk construction, design, repair, and maintenance.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the committee recommend approval of $500,000 for road, sidewalk, construction, design, repair, and maintenance. Discussion. Mr. Unreal.
Mr. Chair, whenever possible, the Select Board allocates these funds at a town meeting to improve the roads and sidewalks around town. The DPW supervises and monitors the process of this and does an excellent job. They're a good steward of Millis's funds. There are savings from last year that they have that will add to this amount and will continue to improve the roads around town. So the Finance Committee unanimously voted to approve this article.
Any further comments or questions? None heard? Article 6.
Article 6, I move that the town vote to borrow under the provisions of MGL Chapter 44 or any other enabling authority the sum of $573,559 for the purchase of a Vector truck for the Department of Public Works. This vote requires a 2/3 majority.
It's been moved and seconded that the committee recommend approval of Article 6, $573,559 for purchase of the Vector truck for the Department of Public Works. Discussion.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Lohr.
Currently, the DPW contracts this work outside, and this would be a truck for the town of Millis. The funding of this truck would come from 4 different sources: stormwater, 75%, water enterprise, 8.3%, sewer enterprise, 8.3%, general funds, 8.3%. Under the stormwater, it's going to help things such as culvert cleaning, culvert repairs, drain cleaning. For sewer funds, it's going to help with sewer main breaks, cleaning sewer mains, and cleaning up lift stations. For water, it's going to be helping with water main breaks, cleaning the water gate boxes, cleaning out of water chambers located in the PFAS plants. And for the general fund use, it'll be responsible for 20 storm chambers and cultic systems.
Okay. Further questions, comments?
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
as
McKay.
previously with the PFAS plant, the cost of that has been presented to the board and will be, I believe, will be presented to the town meeting voters for the cost of the breakdown for the Vector truck.
Okay. Ms. Garzon?
So, so this is just the difference between a 15-year versus a 10-year?
Correct.
Financing. And this breaks down the impact to the water ratepayers, because the stormwater, it'll just come out of the regular stormwater funds.
So again, the CIP money, we have to add that into it, and that's the $1.90, and it will be $7.90-something.
To stormwater as well?
No, I'm sorry.
Or just to water?
Just to water. The rest are
So-
broken down into the cost, $5,590, and it'll be distributed through the, what we believe is which I was going to state earlier, is with the treasurer collector, we will present that it would all be absorbed within the budget without asking for any rate increase to
On-
cover them.
On the stormwater side?
Correct.
Okay, that was gonna be my next question, because everyone just got their yellow
Yep, you
yellow
did.
sheets of paper this week, and are gonna wanna know, is this gonna make my stormwater bill go up?
No.
Once this is purchased?
This won't, but possibly if it's not purchased, the increase will go, because we have to come up with that $56,000 that I proposed to the town in my breakdown for that work to be done outsourced.
Right, it's not like the work goes
Correct.
away, correct.
And one big thing that, which if a question's asked, I will answer this question at town meeting. During the past 2 years, we've been carrying in short-term borrowing. In FY '23, we had almost $15,000 in short-term borrowing, and last year we had a sum of like almost $39,000. What we will do in the May town meeting, we will rescind that borrowing, and we will use those funds that are being carried each year to put towards and that's just in stormwater.
Can you explain that a little,
So,
so I understand a little better?
Several years ago, if we all remember, the Village Street, Birch Street construction project, that went to town meeting, and that was actually put to a vote, and the borrowing was put out for that. And we started to carry, because we thought we were going to have to borrow money to do engineering cost for it. So the treasurer collector, over the past 2 years, has carried money in short-term borrowing.
When calculating the rates?
No, it was in the DPW stormwater budget.
Okay,
There was a line item for short-term borrowing.
and now, going forward, if this Vector truck is purchased and borrowing happens for that, this borrowing will go in where that short-term borrowing was?
And
More or
that
less.
$38,000 will assist in that. I believe it's the $48,000.
Okay, I think I understand what you're saying. It's a lot of pockets.
Yep.
I have a question about the top half of the spreadsheet in terms of what are the advantages of providing the lending option, or excuse me, the borrowing options in terms of the different terms that are presented, 10 or 15 years? I mean, when the town does a short-term or a long-term borrowing, essentially the motions and the articles, if passed, provide the treasurer and the finance director and essentially the town to select, it gives them the authority to seek the borrowing that's most advantageous to the town. And we don't go through all of the options in either backup information or typically in discussion comments. We get the top-line authority that's needed, and then we turn it over to the select board and the finance director to figure that out. I guess my question is, the fact that we have two different options for terms, does that make it more complicated than it needs to be?
More than likely, I was asked to give, when I was presenting this, I was asked to do two, not by this board, but by, my authority. I was asked to give two options. We would I would say that we'll be borrowing for 15 years. I have a letter from the company that the truck life expectancy is from 15 to 20 years. So we will borrow it for 50. I would assume, you know what, I don't do the borrowing. I don't even pretend to even think I do it. The treasurer collector, she went to bond council, and she got the 10-year authority for this, a machine like this.
Okay. Mr. Kaczynski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree fully with Mr. McKay. This was really for the benefit of the Finance Committee and the Select Board, just to see what the two different scenarios are. I would expect that any final document that's considered to be handed out at the town meeting would simply have the 15-year scenario on there, and not both.
The most probable? Or-
It's the most probable
Okay.
solution that will be going for should this pass.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mr. McCaffrey? Mr. McCaffrey, you must speak at a mic, I'm sorry.
We'll be sorry. Again, just from the point of view of the listener, if we could clearly indicate on either one page or 2 pages which article we're talking about, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, Mr. Chair?
Ms. Curzon?
Yeah, to that point, I would recommend ordering these in order of the articles as well, just for clarity's sake, so people know. Otherwise, they'll start asking you questions about the Vector truck when it's, time to talk about the PFAS.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Lohr?
why provide either one of these? It's for the use and for the finance folks to figure out which is best. And rather than talking about probabilities, they're gonna search for the best option that's out there, whether it's 10, 15, or something else. I'm just thinking it's gonna add ambiguity, that's all.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Schultz?
I would suggest that for the sake of your discussion, I mean, if you said that this annual impact using the 15 was between starting at almost $10 and running down to, you know, almost a little below $8 over the first 5 years, I think it tells everybody what they need to know. I don't think they need to see the detail on the sheet, especially if it's being absorbed in the stormwater with no rate increase in the other lines. It'll be absorbed in the general fund with no tax increase. So the only thing that's going to increase, if I'm correct, is the water rate, right, Jim? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so water users would pay an additional annual $8, let's call it 10. $10 or less each year annually, $2.50 a quarter, you know? I think that would say everything.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. McGinnis?
if I might add, I'd like to keep it as it is because ratepayers don't deserve generally, they deserve to know what it's going to cost each quarter as the years go on so they can budget accordingly. Thank you.
Okay. Further comments and questions? Okay, thank you very much. Article 8.
Oh, that's me.
7, I'm sorry. Pardon me.
I move that the town vote to borrow under the provisions of MGL Chapter 44 or any other enabling authority the sum of $136,100 for the lease/purchase of one bus for the Millis schools.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the committee recommend approval of Article 7, $136,100 for the lease purchase of one bus for the Millis schools. Discussion.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Reyes.
This article, if approved, is authorizing the town to borrow the sum of $136,100 for the lease/purchase of one new replacement school bus for the Millis Public Schools. Authorization to enter into the related lease to purchase agreement was previously approved at the May 3rd, 2023 Millis Town Meeting. This additional bus is being requested as a result of the increase in lease costs between the time of the initial estimate of the lease costs approved at the May 3rd Town Meeting for 6 new buses and when the new leases were actually signed. The difference in cost at that point would only allow for the lease/purchase of 5 new buses instead of the 6 that were requested and approved. The Finance Committee voted unanimously to approve this motion.
Okay, further questions, comments? Okay, none heard. Now, Article 8.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Finance Committee recommend approval to transfer from Key Free Cash the sum of $7,800 for an OPEB actuarial study.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that committee recommend approval of $7,800 for an OPEB actuarial study. Discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. McGinnis.
this study is required every other year. The results will calculate the future health care costs for retirees, which is what OPEB is for. The Finance Committee unanimously voted to approve this article.
Okay, further questions and comments? None heard. Article 9.
That would be me. I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $320,784 to the Special Education Stabilization Fund.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the committee recommend approval of transfer of free cash of $320,784 to the Special Education Stabilization Fund. Discussion.
Mr. Chair.
Ms.
this-
Moriarty.
Thank you. This article, if approved, will fund the Special Education Fund, which was established at the 2023 Springtown meeting to pay without further appropriation for unanticipated or unbudgeted costs of special education and recovery high school programs, out-of-district tuition or transportation. The balance in such reserve fund shall not exceed 2% of the annual net school spending of the school district. Funds shall only be distributed from the reserve fund after a majority vote for school committee and the majority vote of the select board. The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of this article.
Okay, further questions, comments? Discussion? None
Sir,
heard?
Mr. Chair, is
Oh,
there
Ms.
anyone
McGinnis.
from the school committee here to address any of the issues they're presenting? No? Okay. I didn't mean you.
I know you didn't, Kathy. Mr. Chair.
Mr. Schultz?
This was a select board item we put on, so we don't have the budget surprises we've had in the past. It didn't originate with the school committee. They agree with it, obviously. But this is something the select board last year put the funding savings account in place. And this year we had enough money to actually put money into that account. So this didn't originate with the school board. They're not ignoring you. This was all select board, okay?
Any further comments or questions? Okay, thank you. Article 10.
I move to vote that the town I move to recommend that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $300,000 to the MGL Chapter 41 Injury Leave Indemnity Fund.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the committee recommend approval of transfer of free cash, the sum of $300,000 to the MGL Chapter 41, Section 111F Injury Leave Indemnity Fund. Discussion.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Rutsky.
This is a legally required operating fund to cover the medical expenses for town police and firefighters injured on the job who meet the insurance coverage threshold. The funds are drawn from every payroll to cover the expenses for such employees. The fall town meeting of November 8th, 2021 voted to establish the fund with no funding added at that time, and the fall town meeting of November 10th 2022 voted to transfer $300,000 from free cash. There are currently 3 town employees injured due to separate incidents, and their return to work date has not yet been set. Right now, there is about $134,000 in the fund. The annual base pay of the 3 employees on leave is about $273,000. Hence, we unanimously voted to transfer another $300,000 to ensure those obligations are met.
Okay. Further questions and comments? None heard. Thank you very much. Article 11.
Article 11 will ask the town to vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $50,000 to the OPEB trust fund account.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the committee recommend approval of transfer from free cash the sum of $50,000 to the OPEB trust fund account. Discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Garzon.
so this article will add funds to the other post-employment benefits funds. Currently, the town has, I was going to say about, but I'll say $259,956 in the OPEB trust account, and is covering claims as needed out of the general operating budget. However, the estimated shortfall to cover all estimated obligations is about $50 million. So we need to be consistently setting aside additional funds for future OPEB needs. For this fall town meeting, the select board is requesting $50,000 to be moved from free cash to the OPEB trust fund account. Continuously or, strategically funding this annually will help with our bond rating as we have to borrow funds into the future. And, at some point, we're going to have to fund it. So while we have some extra free cash, it makes sense to move $50,000 over. And the Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of the article.
Okay. Further discussion, comments? None heard? Ms. Garzon, Article 12.
Article 12 will ask the town to vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $700,000 to the stabilization fund.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the committee recommend approval of transfer from free cash the sum of $700,000 to the stabilization fund. Discussion.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Garzon.
The town of Millis has adopted a policy to maintain a stabilization fund equal to 5% of its general fund budget expenditures to be used for unforeseen and emergency purposes. For this fall town meeting, the select board is requesting $700,000 to be moved from free cash to the stabilization fund. This will put our account balance at about 5.5% of our FY24 budget, which as budget amounts increase, the amount in the fund also needs to increase. And it does fluctuate based on the investments that are held by the fund. So this should insulate us for a time, undetermined amount of time, but it puts us in keeping with our policy that that was established years ago. And the Finance Committee unanimously recommended approval of the article.
Okay, further discussion, comments, questions? None heard? Okay, excellent. At this point, unless there's any last comments, we're going to close pre-town meeting. Okay, the meeting is now closed. Mr. Schultz. I can give you a ride home. All right. Okay, we're closed for the pre-town meeting. Next agenda item is the review of town meeting procedures. So really briefly, most of us have been there, done that, and it will be very much the same as previous town meetings. As we know, Mr. Kennereggi is unavailable, so Mr. McCaffrey will be large and in charge. We've already talked about his wardrobe and his Hawaiian shirt, and I don't know if he's,
Ponytail.
I'm not sure if, I doubt he'll be wearing cargo shorts, but nonetheless, he'll be in charge, and so we'll follow his lead. Members of the Finance Committee should report at, Deirdre, what did we say? We said,
It's posted for 7, I guess. Just for last minute, I can change that.
I don't think that we have, so town meeting starts at 7:30. I think 7 is just fine. That gives people time to show up early, register or check in with the clerk, so that we can vote, and then we'll have any last-minute business in room 104, and then we'll
Correct.
take a brief recess and come down. There's really not much to discuss unless Mr. McCaffrey or you or anybody else has anything they want to add or any questions. Mr. McCaffrey.
Given the opportunity, I wouldn't pass it up, as you know.
Mr. McCaffrey.
Just a couple of comments. None of you, except for Jody Garzon, has had the pleasure of serving on the Finance Committee while I was the moderator. So you all have had a much better time than she's had. But in any event, I just asked for a couple things. The purpose of the discussion is to inform the audience. And it's up to the moderator also to make sure that the audience adds appropriate comments and doesn't go off on a tangent. So I will try to do that. I know you've all done this before, and I certainly appreciate your efforts. All I would ask, having now sat in the audience for the last 10 years, is that you speak into the microphone, and if you think you're too loud, you're not, because we really want everybody to hear. So just to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Mr. McCaffrey, while you're there, have you identified a, I forget the specific name of the role, the person that is kind of the other room, the constable? Typically, you've been the constable, so I'm curious as,
The answer is no, not yet.
okay.
I'm very hopeful. It'll
Okay.
be a vast wasteland in the other room.
I think you're overestimating
But we
attendance
we
at
have
the fall
to,
town meeting.
but we have to, you're right, we have to plan for contingencies.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, sir. Okay, unless there's any further questions, Ms. Barnes.
This is a proposal with, I'm just offering a proposal, I think, to the moderator, but also to the Finance Committee from the perspective of the audience. What ends up happening is that somebody from the audience comes forward, stands before a microphone, and the audience, to the moderator's point, really doesn't hear them and certainly doesn't see them. And the difference would be if they were pivoted just 90 degrees, all of a sudden, they could still address the question to you, but they also, I think, would be better heard by the audience. So I just wanted to ask for some consideration of that, because if you're watching at home on cable, it's horrible anyhow. But also, if you're in the audience, you really don't have the benefit a lot of both from an acoustic standpoint and also in just hearing the person present. And I think it's very solvable with simply a pivot and where the microphones are positioned. Thank you.
Noted. We'll try to get that feedback to the people that are setting up the room. We don't do that. I will add that you maybe have simplified it a little too much, because now when you rotate 90 degrees, your now backside is to people on the outer aisles, unless the mics are set up at the bottom by the exit rows. But I don't know if there are technical, challenges with doing that, but we'll I'll make sure that feedback gets to those that are handling logistics. Okay? Okay, we're going to move on to board and committee liaison updates. I don't know that we have any, so.
Mr. Chair, we're going to, I'll take the motion to adjourn the select board.
Well, regretfully, we'll allow it. Sorry.
See ya.
Have a nice night.
Two of us were leaving.
We'll miss you.
Okay, so the select board meeting has been adjourned. Any board or committee liaison updates from the committee? None? None heard? Okay, that was easy. Bills payable.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Garzon.
I move that we approve the payment of $130 for supplies and expenses that will go to the Association of Town Finance Committees.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the committee vote to approve payment of $130 to the association, to the Association of Town Finance Committees. This is for a couple of members to attend the Association of Town Finance Committees annual meeting. Okay? And I see that both Ms. Moriarty and Ms. McGinnis are attending, so that's great.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? None heard? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any negatives? Any nays? And one abstention. If you would sign.
Certainly.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Garzon.
I move that we approve the payment of $4,758 for printing costs to our town publishing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the committee vote to approve the amount of $4,758 for printing costs to our town publishing. This is for the printing of the warrant report, or the Finance Committee report for fall town meeting. Further discussion? None heard? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? One abstention.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Garzon.
I move that we approve the minutes as written from October 18th.
Second, yes, second, sorry.
It's been moved and seconded that the committee vote to approve minutes as written for our meeting on October 18th. And I just want to give us a minute to look them over further if needed. No discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? So Mr. Crone abstains. Deirdre? Okay.
Yep, got it.
So while we wait for signing,
Before we adjourn.
For Mr. Lore.
before we adjourn, dress comfortably, wear layers, because the lights are hot up on the stage.
Consider a hat or sunglasses.
Yeah, I know. I want a visor.
What's that? Advil?
Retake some Advil.
Yeah,
for
the seats are uncomfortable, the lights are in your eyes,
I'm
and they're
wearing
hot.
sunglasses.
Okay, so has all 8 members signed? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Deirdre. Okay, I'll take a motion.
Move we adjourn?
Moved and adjourned. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deirdre.
Thank you.